Microphone on. It's red. We're good. Call public safety meeting to order at 1:05. With that, do I have a motion to accept the minutes from September 28th, 2021? Dave,
John?
Second. Dave, thank you. Second. The minutes. Matt, thank you. That, all in favor of accepting the minutes? Aye. Opposed? It's accepted. I thought with the coroners we have several topics I think we have to address first. We have the forensic pathologist, and then we have the Dr. Schwartz as the pathologist, and I think we start with the tougher issue first, the pathologist issue. And Tony, would you like to speak to that from the DA's point of view?
Sure, but
So you can use the.
I think Bob has some recent information. I think Bob also has some recent information, but as I think most everyone knows now, with the executive order from the governor's office regarding healthcare workers, people working in a medical facility having to be vaccinated, and our forensic pathologist is not, and is not going to become so. The Washington County is now without a local forensic pathologist, which is the same challenge that Warren, Saratoga, Rensselaer, I mean, really from south of Albany, what are all facing. And so, one was to bring this to your attention, two, to begin trying to find what solutions might be available. I can say for certain, after having met with Governor's Council last week, that they are going to carve out the we are continuing to try to find short-term solutions. I think that's going to continue.
We're good. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
The short-term solution is going to require, in the instance of deaths that have a potential criminal component, where the autopsy will have to be performed most likely either in Binghamton or Onondaga County, which are the two closest at this point options. And I know Coroner Lemieux has provided at least one name, so we're going to continue to look at those options and try to come up with a regional solution, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. We're working with the state police. Hopefully they can maybe explore some options. This brought about, I mean, really the challenge we're going to face is attracting practice to here in the Albany area to be able to deliver these services. Because I think when you look at regions in the state that aren't in a similar situation, they have practice groups that are performing this service for. That's kind of where we're at. Some may include a need for an investment by counties. Some may not. It just depends on certainly the short-term cost, though, will be cost of the coroners, cost if it's a sheriff's case, if the sheriff's department is accompanying, and then cost for the testifying in grand jury hearings and trials. That will all result in increasing costs, no doubt, from what we currently have.
Tony, approximately how many of those cases do we get a year?
It varies. The challenge is not knowing, like with overdose deaths, that number is a bit variable, and so probably, what would you say, Bob, 10 to 20 a year? Probably. I mean, it's a pretty wide number because in 1 year, 20 to correct. So I think, I haven't looked at what the average is, but that's probably what you're looking at. When it's needed, it's needed. The good news is we have a short-term solution to a challenge that Bob encountered with state police maybe a week or so ago, which is the storage or preservation of the body, location of the body pending the autopsy. I don't have an answer on what do we do in the unattended death, but at least in a criminal setting, Glens Falls Hospital has indicated a willingness through their counsel at least to allow us to continue to use their morgue, for those purposes, because the issue you run into being, kept at the funeral home, then you're gonna have law enforcement present at the funeral home, entire time pending when an autopsy can get scheduled. So I think Bob has secured pretty quick turnaround on the non-criminal related autopsies, which is the vast majority of what the county faces. That's through the facility in Amsterdam, correct? I don't know what the costs are going to be. Certainly, hopefully we can work out something, but I think where the real cost will come in is the testifying, because if they're coming up from Binghamton or in for Syracuse, you're talking not an hour drive, you're talking 6 hours just in travel time alone. So that will certainly add to the challenge. Did I miss anything on that end, Bob, for the forensic side? So, any questions?
Maybe a silly question. Is there any, do you have any coroners or people who would qualify, or excuse me, people who would qualify as medical examiners, say in a neighboring county in Vermont that would be licensed in New York that might be cheaper?
For a forensic pathologist, not that I'm aware of. I know we've had to use Burlington before when we had a fatal up in Hampton, and it was actually significantly more expensive, if I remember correctly, just then you're also dealing with the complication that the individual died, I think, at Burlington Hospital, so that's what triggered that, and it was a complexity of dealing with that was just very different. You know, it added some cost and uncertainty.
Between on and that one.
So, I'm assuming, Bob, that you got this data through Dr. Chickerica. But I mean, we'll reach out to Mike. It's frustrating for him and for all of us we're dealing with. I know there was some exploration of using the funeral homes themselves as a location, and that was denied by Department of Health. So my guess is any effort to find an alternate location is going to be met with resistance. Unless it's in a facility, or maybe the state police will develop something. I think regionally that's what we're hoping for, and I know they're exploring it, but the cost is going to be significant. But hopefully the cost that can be shared with other counties, not just one.
Any other questions for Tony? Tony,
Yeah.
would you like? Sue?
I'm sorry, I missed part of the conversation, Tony, but I, was wondering about, has Glens Falls Hospital thought about putting out and rehiring another doctor?
Well, Dr. Sticker was a private practitioner who performed these services all around the area.
Yeah.
And a couple of years back, I mean, this isn't new that Dr. Sticker has really been the lead in this area.
Yeah, but he's gone now, right?
With one other. And so I had talked to a professor at Albany Med of pathology, and he said they're aware of the problem of getting people to enter the field is not an easy task. And getting people that enter the field to come to the region seemed to be difficult. So I think it's going to be a matter of trying to solicit one of these regional practices to come and fill in, because Dr. Sticker did everything here. So I think people from a competitive standpoint said, why? Because, from the forensic side, he was the dominating force just because of his abilities. That may have kept people from looking to come. Maybe this will.
Can they try to replace him?
Say?
Can they try to replace him?
We're trying, and that's what we're working on, is to figure out what's the pathway to do that. I doubt a hospital, I shouldn't say I doubt, I don't know of any hospitals right now that are looking to pay the cost of bringing in a forensic pathologist. But they might be. I mean, but that would certainly be ideal, is if a hospital brought in a practice group to do that.
I mean, I would think that between Albany Med, Saratoga Hospital, Glens Falls Hospital, Ticonderoga, when you're looking at all these different areas, that they all have the same need.
One would think, but.
One would think.
You know, for the past, my 8 years as DA, and, you know, some years before that, it's just, there hasn't been success in that.
Don?
Thank you.
Dana, go ahead.
Here's an idea. How about we put some pressure on Glens Falls Hospital to hire him? It's their policy that's causing this. I think his patients are already deceased. So why does he need a vaccine?
It's, what's happened is the order from Governor Hochul is being, and quite frankly, I haven't read it in so long, it's either directly or being interpreted by all of the hospitals as prohibiting someone to work in the hospital who has not been vaccinated. And that, so with, especially with the regionalization of hospitals, once one interpreted that way, and I think that's also the intent of what the governor's counsel's office or general counsel has said is that isn't getting carved out, and that is what is meant by that order.
Read that through
So
for me.
that's how-
I made some changes to add his responsibilities in there and stuff that wasn't in there, so.
All right, then let's push back against Governor Hochul. That their
Yeah,
policy.
I met with their counsel last week, and we will continue to, but I can tell you based on her reaction that there won't be a carve out. I think our best option will be to find either an alternate location that will be approved by DOH, but that's going to be an investment, you know, an investment of money for the facility, if you will. But that's what we're exploring. And
So
you know,
Tony, so you think the fix is we find a location that Dr. Sirica can perform these duties other than the hospital?
that would be, I think that's how it's done in most places. They'll have their own facility where they'll do, you know, and it would be consistent with really what the state police lab does in terms of investigative assist. So, but I don't know whether, I mean, every time I've been to the lab itself, they have people in every nook and cranny imaginable for where they're working now. So it's going to take an investment to expand a facility or convert a facility.
Any other questions for Tony? Brian?
So where Dan went, you mentioned Burlington, how about Rutland? Or is it just the state problem?
Across state lines with
Across state lines is more of a problem than Burlington was.
Bob will know more on that than I do, but that causes a lot of challenges.
So, no other questions for Tony? Anything else, Tony? You have to
No,
bring
we'll
up?
keep it posted, as that goes, and I think Bob has some updates on his end, so, which are a little bit more positive, at least there's some.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was kind of throwing curveball because the Glens Falls Hospital had spoke to me directly on the phone and said that the variance didn't really apply to him because he was an outside contractor. That they had called the health department and got a ruling, and then they changed their mind, and they closed the doors at like 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, I think it was, and said that he can't perform any more autopsies as of 4 o'clock. 1 o'clock the next morning, I get a coroner call for a case in which an autopsy was necessary. By 7 o'clock, I was able to ascertain a pathologist who's not a forensics at St. Mary's, Dr. Schwartz. I got that through my connections with the Association of County Coroners and Medical Examiners, and Dr. Schwartz says, sure, I'll do it for you, but you're going to have to bring the body. And one of the stipulations with him, St. Mary's is so small, is we have to bring the body the day of the autopsy, wait for it, and then take the body back to the funeral home. He charged $1,000 for his services, and he said that the hospital fee on that particular case was gonna be waived. He said it was a, open house gift. But they're working on a price for that. So at this point, I don't know what that price will be. He could probably do, after talking to the coroners in Fulton County and Montgomery County and the other counties, he could probably do, probably 97% of our calls, because a lot of them are vicious, but they end up being natural, or they're suicides or overdoses and toxology. He can sign off on those. Tony was talking about what we get into a case is a true forensics case, in which somebody's gonna have to testify, and he can't do that. He doesn't have the forensics. But I think he can certainly help us out in the meantime. It's certainly a Band-Aid on a fracture. It's not an ideal situation. You know, I left with the funeral home at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was home by 3:30 in the afternoon. But it is what it is. That's what we sign up to do. It was our responsibility as coroners to try to figure out how we're going to solve this solution. That's what we're elected to do, not only just do coroner calls, but to be able to take care of situations that arise. That's what we're elected for, and I hope that you trust us to make those decisions. In this particular case, we really didn't have too many options. So we try to use the family doctor to sign, we try to use Dr. Gallagher, the coroner's physician, to sign, and then, some cases, Dr. Sikorica will sign, as long as we send all the medical information, but if it needs an autopsy right now, Dr. Schwartz seems for us. I did ask him if he'd be willing to come to Glens Falls, and he said no. So, that was one of the things that I did say, and unfortunately, Glens Falls didn't have a plan when they did this, and they don't really need to have a plan because it's not their issue. Hospital deaths usually are signed out, and if someone dies in the ER, it's Warren County Coroner's situation, not theirs. That's kind of where we're at.
Right?
Can you remind us what the price has been in the past?
Glens Falls Hospital has charged us, I think it's $12.50, and Dr. Sikorica has charged us, I think it's $12.50.
$2,500 for the total.
Right.
$1,000 on the first one, so you're expecting the price to be the same, but what we lacked is the person testified.
Yep.
Caliber.
I sit on the New York State Coroners Association Board of Directors, and Dr. Vertis, who is in Binghamton, also sits on the board with me. She's a forensics. She, in 2009, worked on the plane crash in Clarence, Buffalo area. She's part of DMOR. She is a forensics, and her price would be $900, but I don't know the hospital price. That would be a contract issue that would have to come to the county administration. But again, that's a trip, but she's willing to help out if Tony can't find someone else. She is a board certified forensics pathologist.
So it's basically it's a two-pronged thing. One is just getting the actual autopsy done, and then the other is somebody that testifies.
Right, but the person
The
that
person that does the autopsy has to be the same person.
Right, so it's, like you're saying, 97% of the cases, it's not really a situation, but for 3%, it is a
we have a forensics case, we need a forensics pathologist.
So Bob, right now you've identified two, Onondaga County and,
Onondaga County, Dr. Debbie Johnson was in Ogden, in that county. She went back out to Colorado. They have their own facility in that county, and they have different pathologists who come in, but they don't have a sitting right now, to my knowledge. Then in Fulton County said they've taken a couple cases to Nassau County, but they're full. They don't, and both counties' travel time is about the same, still a ways away.
so right now we have one option. two, if you had Nassau County
Right,
and,
Nassau, would they take any recommendations?
Yeah, if we end up with a situation, I mean, in the interim, we end up with a situation where we need it done, somebody will do it, it will be calling around, the question becomes, wanted to. I think for those that were involved in Raise the Age, I liken it to when we had to make the decision on how we want to deal with needing secured beds. Some counties have contracts that gives them a priority. Ours is hey, if it's open, it's yours, but if one of the contract counties needs it, it's there. So I think we would be in a holding pattern if there was a over taxation on that particular corner, or pathology, we'd have to wait until they were done, and then they would fit us in. So that could be a day, it could be 2 days, it could be a couple of hours. But all of that is going to end up with being time on the coroner, on the funeral home, and on the law enforcement agency, because they're going to be waiting and traveling. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest cost. But
Tony, just out of curiosity, this will sound like a silly question, I'm sure, but can they testify by Zoom?
no. But I guess in some counties, yes. So the answer is some counties have been granted permission under law to allow remote proceedings, but not in Washington County.
Is that something we could solve?
No, I mean, there's like 12 counties were granted that permission, and quite frankly, our county court judge wouldn't permit it anyhow. And we often pay experts to come in, or witnesses that are from out of the area. So it's just the interim of being, Dr. Sikorica coming up from Waterford versus someone coming from Binghamton is just the difference.
Right. But telework is so new and different now that it is coming into the court system.
There's constitutional issues with confrontation, with witnesses being there. The consent, I'm not sure we would see it happen here. And it would be a legislative action anyhow. So that would be, hopefully we have a solution before they would take action anyways. But, it was an option that was allowed a little bit during courts were shut down. I don't even know what they allow in family court right now. Dan, you would deny, but.
Generally speaking, the trials at this point, family court are all in person. I did one removal hearing on Zoom, which was an experience, to put it mildly. And obviously one of the biggest problems you have is showing exhibits to a witness. Kind of hard to do when they're 3 hours away and you have the document in your hand.
The good news is that, we don't have a lot, and even when we do, it's rare in terms of the preliminary proceedings, meaning grand jury, preliminary hearings, or other hearings, where their testimony is necessary. Of all the instances where we've had autopsies performed as part of a criminal case, there's only a handful of times where they've had to testify. So if that's a cost we can manage, we're going to see increase in cost because they're going to use NMS labs probably for doing the tests. Their costs are significantly greater than state police. There will be some added expenses that we'll experience as we try to work this out. That was your best.
One of the things right now is Glens Falls Hospital put in a 12-bed cooler. They did this before they anticipated they were having to throw out Dr. Sikorica. But anyways, they've told us that we can use the cooler free of charge until the end of December. So if we do have a body that's got to go to Binghamton or wherever, we can put them in the cooler until they go, and there's no additional charge. And I asked the question, is that going to be true after the end of December? And they said, we'll have to get back to you.
Bob, would that be for a fee or to use the facility at all?
That's just the fee to store in the cooler. Right now,
So-
they'll do it for free.
So after December, there would be a fee
There's a
to store,
possibility, they haven't right out and said that yet, but there's that possibility.
but we would still have use of the facility.
Correct.
Brian?
That's still considered secure, because I mean, you said we needed. Yeah. Oh, fine. I didn't know if it was still considered secure, there's someone working there. Yeah.
Thinking out of the box, and, there's only 650 or 675 forensic pathologists in the country. Nobody's going, Dr. Sikorica will tell you, no one's going into the field because of the fact they have to testify, and they have to prepare, and it's just a lot of work. But thinking out of the box for future, this doesn't solve the problem now, but, again, thinking out of the box, maybe we could advertise in med school to pay forensic training and med training if they come back and commit to the county for 20 years.
You may get 5, I don't know if you're gonna get 20.
Maybe, right now, Dr. Sikorica is still doing autopsies in Saratoga County at their hospital for Saratoga County residents. Contacted the coroner in Saratoga County to see if we could step in our cases, and, the rule is Saratoga County residents only. But they're, as of right now, and I don't know if that's changed, but as of right now, they're still letting them practice their forensics for Saratoga County.
So right now, if we need a forensic pathologist, then, Binghamton now, and Nassau County, that's where we are?
For sure.
Don?
That would be, Dana, go ahead.
I would like some clarity from Bob. I had asked if this is a Glens Falls hospital policy or a governor policy. He just said that Dr. Sikorica is still working at Saratoga Hospital. So to me, this is a Glens Falls hospital policy, not that the hospital is following a rule by the governor. Is that true?
They told me when I called the first time that they called the health department. The health department told them that they didn't apply. Then they called back and said that there's conflicting information and that it does apply. So I don't, maybe you can answer that better.
Well, if it's a tie goes to the runner, I would rather Washington County be the runner and not Glens Falls Hospital. So back to my original premise, can we, through a motion or some kind of pressure, have Glens Falls Hospital reverse their course and allow Dr. Sikorica to do his work there, considering he's doing it at Saratoga?
Supervisor Hack, you could, certainly that would be a board decision, but I think that, I don't know about the Saratoga Hospital thing. I was told by the Saratoga County DA that Saratoga Hospital was not an option for them, so there may be something different there, but this is happening in St. Peter's, Albany Med, Ellis, Amsterdam, the Moses Ludington Hospital. I mean, all of the hospitals are under the same direction that this is not permitted. So it's not fair to say that it's Glens Falls alone. I mean, admittedly, they're one of the 5 hospitals that service us and our residents on a regular basis, it seems, but they're not alone in that interpretation.
But Tony, it's an interpretation. It's not black and white. Everyone agrees, correct?
I'm not aware of anyone who disagrees with that interpretation. So,
Well, how is he at Saratoga Hospital?
I don't know if he is still, so I could look into that, but I don't. And I will tell you, I mean, we talked to the governor's council, and there was absolutely no hesitation on her part that they're not creating a carve-out for medical examiners.
Matt, you had your hand raised?
Dana, what leverage do we have over Glens Falls Hospital for them to change their mind of their policy? We have no leverage with them.
You can
What
try.
incentive would they have?
Isn't Dana Hogan on the board, Glens Falls Hospital? Were you at one time? Thought he was.
No, Dan,
So-
I was on the Hudson Headwaters board at one point. I was never on the Glens Falls Hospital board.
Maybe Hudson Headwaters can do this. Let Dr. Sikorica go there. I understand from Bob, it's a money-making proposition.
We still need
No.
a facility though, correct?
Yes, you need a facility for it. So, in summary, Bob, right now, if we were to need a forensic pathologist, you'd get on the phone and you'd call one of 3 places.
Correct.
Okay. We have some contract renewals. Hudson Headwaters, coroner's physician. I'd like to talk about those.
Dr. Gallagher is our coroner's physician. We use him quite a bit. Anytime that we can save an autopsy, after, if a doctor refuses to sign it, we'll call Dr. Gallagher. Medical information, the scene information, the investigative portion, and he's with us in a lot of cases. So let's save the county money because normally we would have to move an autopsy if he didn't sign. So he's willing to help us out in continuing that capacity and course on certain cases. They're really natural deaths. The doctor hadn't seen the patient in years, not comfortable signing or whatever. We'll sign on them.
And what's the current contract with him?
I don't know that part.
2 years.
2 years?
2 year contract.
Would the cost be the same? Or?
They're looking at it.
Okay. Deb, can we take any action today on it, or if they're still looking at the contract?
We don't have the contract yet. We could try to forward it to finance.
Do I need a motion to move it to finance if it comes in? Okay. We have a motion to move the Hudson Headwaters coroner's physician contract to finance. I know, just keep smiling, Brian. Sue, thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you, Dave. Any further discussion? All in favor of moving it to finance? Aye. We're good. You have, NMS Laboratory contract.
They're the ones when Albany Med first kind of shut down the morgue a few years ago. The laboratory, one of them retired. So we started using NMS Labs to do our testing, toxicology testing. We've continued to do that ever since when Dr. Sikorica went to Glens Falls. All the kits that were in Albany Med that were ours, around the Glens Falls, it's all done there. Death certificates today, the law requires that on a overdose, there has to be a specific intoxication, drug intoxication on the death certificate. You have to do the lab testing to find out exactly what the person died of, what specific drug, but that has to be on the death certificate by law. So in a lot of cases, Dr. Sikorica would use the lab for that. And what we're doing now, we have to pick up the kit at the hospital or the morgue and send it with the body to St. Mary's to have it. It has our label and our information. So it's a service that we really still.
And do we have a current contract with?
They have submitted a 2 year contract. The county attorney has reviewed it. The only change is the rate for the services. Now, that's increased.
Yes, Brian?
Is there an opt-out if this whole situation changes in 6 months or a year? Because that might be important, I guess. You know, if the whole thing changed, we don't know where this is going now.
Bob, do we have to use NMS?
Well, I'm just saying, if it changes, would it be where somebody does that with their own group and it wouldn't include that? And I don't wanna be locked into different contracts and only able to use one, still paying two.
I don't know, of another lab that they use. He does, but, we use the NMS lab, so does Warren County and Sarasota County. Most of the counties for regular coroner calls use that particular lab. Don't know if there's another one out there.
Yes, but, I mean, they do great work, they're quick. On criminal stuff, often we'll use the state police lab, but there's some things that they don't do, and then it goes to that.
So they're gonna be the one anyway.
Yes.
Okay, that was my concern. Very good.
Don,
Yes, so,
on the St. Mary's, do they use this lab?
Yes.
They will agree to use it from us, but is that
bring our stuff with us.
Yeah, but is that their normal procedure?
Yeah.
They would use it anyways. Fulton County, Montgomery County also uses the same.
We can't use their stuff, we have to bring ours, because
Everything's pre-packaged and pre-labeled with Washington County on there and billing address.
St. Mary's can say in a year from now that, you know, well, we'd like to use our own?
No. They use the same lab.
Okay, it's consistent.
We have to bring ours because we have pre-printed labels on the paperwork for Washington County. County has their own, Fulton County has their own. Well, all those come from the lab. Boxes come from labs, so they go with us. So whether it's at St. Mary's or Syracuse, we would do that with us because it's our identification.
yep, yes.
I think these contracts need procurement waivers from the committee as well while we're at it. Or we weren't bid, right?
This one needs a waiver, the NMS.
Okay. Was the first one we did.
Not noted here, but it probably does, because that's with, he moved the Hudson Headwaters from Glen Falls Hospital, so.
So it wasn't bid, right, so probably need the waiver as well.
That's the both, right.
No harm.
Is it here?
Yeah.
Okay. We would, need a motion for waiver on the, Hudson Headwaters coroner position and the NMS laboratory contracts. Move it. Thank you. Second? Sue? Any discussion on the contracts? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And, next up, request for resolution to set rates for transportation to Amsterdam. Bob, what would that be, the cost, or?
I think when we were going to Albany, I think it was 400 or
375.
375. I really don't know, what the rate would be to St. Mary's. I know it took us, we left at 11, we were there by 12:20, I think it was. And they had to wait back. This was probably about 45 minutes. So they're tying up their time. Don't know what would be an appropriate rate. Orders that came in. That one was, I think.
Was that?
I think it should be at least the 375 like Albany. Yeah, remember, at least that.
Is that fair for their time, Bob, to,
I'm concerned about the fact that they're having to wait, tie up a person.
I don't know what the, what you think is a fair reimbursement for.
But Bruce would have an idea, but I maybe to start with 400.
County gets a lot more. Pretty much a blank. I hear they doctor what they want. They got to go to sit around there. Good possibility.
So would 400 be a good starting point?
Any thoughts on that discussion? Well, we can start with 400 and see what the process goes and what the time frame is. Any thoughts on the budget, man?
The price of fuel going down so low, I can't imagine that 400 wouldn't cover it. 400 really isn't gonna be enough to go that extra distance with all the time and everything. I mean, it's a starting point, but yeah, there's no one gonna be happy with that. I mean, you're taking their whole day, really. By the time you go down there, wait all day, and come back, you're taking the whole day.
We got the new e-hearse, we'll just get electric.
Oh, it might be an answer. It would be fully charged by the time you come back, by the sound of it.
So I guess we can start at 400, and if that's not sufficient, come back to the committee, and we can make adjustments for that, so. I have a motion to set the rate for transportation to Amsterdam at $400. Motion.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Matt. Sue, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. One last item with the coroners, and I think it's organizational, and I've talked with Melissa, I've talked to Tim, and their administration, some of it's done in public health, some is done up here, and also for office space and storage. And I'd like to discuss moving the administration to public safety, where they're processed the vouchers, handle the storage, the system with ordering, and they'd also be a 24-hour point of contact for the coroners. And Tim, are you on? Tim Hardy? Was on. But I've talked to Tim and about that, and he said administratively it's wouldn't be an extra burden on them to handle the administrative matters for the coroners, and their whole administrative process would be in one area, because now the vouchers some are done up here, payroll is done up here, some of the ordering for supplies is done at the Department of Health, and I think the administrative process gets a little disjointed with that. And I talked to Bob, and do you have any thoughts on administrative process going into one area?
It's easier with the vouchers going to. Vouchers come to us, we have to sign them anyway.
Tim, your thoughts on doing administrative work for the coroners?
Yeah, certainly we could be a resource for them. I mean, obviously, Bob and the other coroners, whatever they need, we'll gladly help them out with, but certainly they know and run the majority of things on their own. whatever they need, we can help.
And
Yeah, Chairman Ward. Yeah, we had a
Sam.
request, we had a request from a supervisor on the chat from Supervisor Half that we asked the public speakers to speak into the mics because they can't hear them.
okay,
Okay, thank you.
Melissa.
I just wanted to mention that I've been in contact with Bob in the past about office space, and we've been trying to make that happen. If I guess there is interest in having them be more under the public safety realm and utilize their office, I think what we'll probably do is look to see if we have office space closer to public safety, which the first idea was to put you over to public health. We had a spot we were emptying out, which was getting close, I believe, as a temporary solution, but maybe it makes more sense to see if we have room in this building maybe downstairs closer to public safety. And I do have a conversation with someone in a couple days to kind of see if we do have that space available for you. So hopefully we can move in that direction if that's the will of the board.
Would it, go ahead, Brian.
So basically, it's just being streamlined in one place, everything's gonna get done in one area. What Bob referred to, what would public safety not know that Stacy would already know? I mean, there's no reason for any gaps there, so what do we have to do to make sure everyone has the same information if we're gonna change where they go? Anyone?
Well, I would think that they could learn how to do the vouchers. They do vouchers down there now, and I think they would just be learning the process of doing the corner vouchers. I don't think that'd be a big.
It's a heavy lift. Sounds like it's very easy, but I just wanted to know because that would be a concern, and I just want to make sure it's addressed, that whatever it is that Bob thinks is missing, I don't know. They're still gonna go to safety for free on it, so they're gonna end up there anyway, but I see no harm in it being centralized, right, does it?
Well, I think, Stacy has a whole system. She's put a lot of work into it. You know, like the autopsies come in on a whole list, and she gets the vouchers to the specific coroners. She's worked on the contracts with the physician and the NMS and stuff. So she's done it. It's been a part of her duties.
Yeah.
So, sure, somebody else can do it. That's not the issue, but, that's your decision.
No, that's my question though. Is there gonna be something missing, or are they still gonna send them to safety and pre-audit is still gonna be taken? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand.
All vouchers come to safety.
For pre-audit anyway, yeah.
So we could always just keep that portion where it is, with the contracts and different things. And
I don't know.
I don't know.
The person was trying to centralize. Just, centralize the activities around, have them in 2 or 3 different spots. And get the records into. Okay. Am I going here, Cassie?
Did somebody actually make the request for this to happen, or is this just somebody's new idea that's being sprung on everybody today? Or the department actually request all these changes?
It was, with the change in the forensic pathologist and the changes with the normal pathologist, there was a lot of confusion, a lot of communication didn't flow, and we had a lot of bumps along the road, and it kind of became obvious to me with the discussions that we should centralize some of the administrative activity because it was just not in one area, and the communication and how things went about were not efficient, smooth, and I don't think it happened quick enough with it. So it was my thought to bring the discussion forward about centralizing. Cassie?
So all this came forward because of the current problem with pathology or a previous problem with pathology?
Well, the current problem, and then I think the overall communication problem, because one of the things we had talked about was reinstating the quarterly meetings, because talking with Bob, there are issues that do come up that need to be addressed, and we were looking to, like I said, centralize it administratively, because you had Department of Health in one area, they report to public safety in another area, and they keep their records in their houses. So we were trying to get administratively in one area, and we could work on the communications, the storage of records, ordering of supplies, things like that. Go ahead, Cassie.
By the sounds of it, no matter what you were doing, there was going to be bumps and bruises and a problem with the change in pathology. I think it sounds like, just from an outsider's point of view, that there needs to be a lot more discussion before we start making changes. So everybody that's concerned is on the same page and has a group discussion before the group of supervisors just decides to automatically change it. Sounds like it needs more conversation, that something that was going to be a hitch in the road no matter what you did doesn't seem to be a major reason to make it change right off the bat. I think it sounds like some of the departments involved need to have a group discussion before we decide. Not that I'm on the committee, but just from listening, that's what it sounds like.
No, that's why I brought it up today as a discussion, to get everyone's thoughts on it, and then get some additional information. But that was the purpose of today. It wasn't to make a decision. It was to bring up the discussion and get the thoughts from different supervisors with it. Any other questions, thoughts? I think the other thing with the communications is with the coroners, and I'd like them to have their own discussion about it, is if we had a team leader or a liaison, one point of contact that we could go to talk to the other coroners. Of course, the other coroners can come forward any time, but it's difficult to always reach out to 4 different people. If they have an issue and they brought it forward to one person, that would be a great help in the communications of where we are. Because generally the only one I hear from is Bob, and that's when they have a problem. And it would be great to know what's coming down the road ahead of time, or potential issues or current problems. So I'd like the coroners to talk about a way to communicate with the public safety and the board better with that. So Bob, do you have any thoughts on that, or do you have any other coroners on Zoom or here? Well, I'll send an email out and get the feeling of the coroners with it, because we definitely need better communication between the coroners and the board with that. I think, Tony, you had mentioned that they at one time did quarterly meetings, semi-annual meetings.
I know they used to, and we would get, I know we've attended a few, when there were issues with discovery. I just realized Chairman Hall is at least speaking to the mic.
Right.
I know they used to, I'm not sure, I think Public Health coordinated those, so we would get invited periodically. But certainly if they were to have those, we would, or I or someone from my office would definitely attend, because I think that's.
Melissa?
So, yeah, part of the history, I think, and part of the problem that we saw that just happened recently was that Public Health coordinated those meetings in the past. With COVID, they've gotten sidetracked and have a new subject that they're dealing with. So when this subject came up with the forensic pathologist, when that issue arose, public safety public health didn't really know what role they were expected to play in this. They know that they actually supply, I believe, the coroners with your PPE that you may need, but other than that, they really weren't sure what role they were supposed to take. So, I mean, I think if we could discuss more of a streamlined process, maybe it would assist the coroners more so that maybe they have some direction from the county, because that was one of the comments that I heard from one of the coroners. They just felt like they weren't being given any kind of direction. So maybe if we kind of streamline that so that we can communicate better in the past, or I'm sorry, in the future, maybe that'll help. I wish we could go back to the past and make it better.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just my own 2 cents. Just like the sheriff and the DA, we're elected. We're not part of a department. We're elected, and we're in autonomy to each other. And when things like this come up, like what happened with the hospital closing down the morgue, I feel it's our obligation as coroners. We're supposed to be the trained experts. It's supposed to be our job to figure out what the next step is and to come to the administration and say, we've got a plan in place. I don't think we should be calling you and asking you, what should we do? I feel, and I've taken the time to get trained, and I've spent a lot of time doing this job as coroner and taking the time to get trained to do the job. I think it's important that we come to you with suggestions about how we should do it. We shouldn't be coming to you and asking. I don't think that's our job. I don't think the sheriff comes to you or the DA. You are elected because they're the experts.
I
feel that we're not the coroners that happened in the 50s. We just show up with our hands in our pocket. I think that coroners today are expected to do more. I think we're trained. Some of us do communicate. Some don't. But we're autonomy. We're all our own elected official. Serve the people of Washington County and to work for you, serve you. And I do show up here because I happen to care about the job. I happen to take the job seriously. And I think it's up to us to show you that we know what we're doing and that you can trust us to come up with a plan, like what do we do when we have an autopsy and we don't have anybody to do it? Hopefully I prove that that's what we do.
I don't think that was any issue here. I talk to you frequently. I know you're a professional. It was just to communicate better, to know what you need from us and what obstacles you may have down the road that we can help you with. You know, this is not to step in and interfere with how you do your business. But when an issue occurs, like the pathologists and the forensics, it does come back to the board, but it's working together. You're the professionals, but it's working together with you on what you need and what we can do to help you. It's not anything to take away any of your authority. You know, don't look at it that way. It's to communicate so we know what you need and and how you're going about the process. And we've talked frequently and we have good conversations, and I appreciate you keeping me informed of what you do. So, but I appreciate it, and I know you do everything professionally because we speak frequently. So that is not the purpose of centralizing some of the activity. It's just trying to make it easier and smoother for everybody. And I appreciate the work you do. It's not easy, and this has been a difficult month or so. But working together, we can work through this problem and develop future solutions, you know, with your expertise. Yeah. Any other questions for the coroners? Yeah. Bob, anything you'd like to close with?
No, as always, I just thank you for your support and understanding. We're trying to do the job out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate everything you do. John? Graham?
A real quick and easy one here for you. We had our first meeting with the software company yesterday. Just kind of get scheduled out, figure out where we're headed from here, process is being. Actually looking like it's going to go even quicker than I thought. I originally figured it was going to be about 6 months. And they're figuring that probably around mid-February, that will be, actually the end of January, will be going live with that. We've got a few weeks that we're going to be compiling all the information that we need, different reports, things along those lines. That should be done by mid-November. We're going to be configuring the whole system and specifying what information are in different reports, things along those lines. That should be done by the beginning of December. Testing it until the middle of December, training until the middle of January, and then right after that going live. So there's some delays and things I anticipate. It might not be exactly at that point. Very well. Looking forward to it. I want to say thank you to all of you folks, all the supervisors that voted on. Good idea. That's going to be very helpful for all sides involved in it. So thank you very much. I was going to come up with a few numbers to let you guys know where we were as far as our permit application thing. But once I got into it, I wanted to do a little more background look on it. I'll have more of that for you. All I got. Any questions?
Any questions for John? Questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you again. I probably said this before, but I'm so excited about this stuff that I told my wife I really can do like really.
Sheriff Murphy, I skipped over you on the agenda. Go ahead.
Hey, no problem. Thank you. It's awful cold and rainy day to be having all this grim discussion about bodies. I don't have anything related to that. So I do have a request to renew a contract with the State Department of Corrections for food products to be delivered to the jail. It's food for inmates. It's a 5-year contract. We signed one back in 2016-17 area. It's already budgeted. There's no change in what the numbers are that are in the budget. It's basically just a formality that needs a resolution to accept the contract.
Thanks, Matt. Second. Second. Okay. With that, any discussion on continuing the contract? Oh, go ahead.
Sheriff, are you requesting a waiver?
A waiver?
Yeah. So you're not looking to go out to RFP for new services. You're looking to stay with the existing.
Yes. It's yeah, it's been the same contract since 2007 or 8, I think. Maybe even before that, but that's like the earliest one I found. So it's a kind of like a renewal of existing contract. It's a 5-year contract, keeps going and going and going.
Okay. So you probably want to ask the committee for a procurement waiver.
That was included in my motion.
Matt included in his motion, the procurement waiver.
He says I did.
With that from, on the 5-year contract, so, do I have a second, on that? That's motion. Dave, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Discussion.
Okay, go ahead.
Sheriff Murphy, this is,
Yep.
can you hear me?
Yep.
The food, is it the same that they had, maybe 4 years ago? Same. I went down in for the Meals on Wheels and went into the kitchen. The Meals on Wheels had a wonderful lunch. Okay, it was absolutely fabulous. So then I looked at the calendar, to see what the sloppy Joe mix was gonna be. And actually, Craig, who was serving at that point, took me in and showed me sloppy Joe mix in the bag that was due to be served to the inmates. I actually suggested to him that he should serve lunch to the Board of Supervisors, and we could have sloppy joes one day because we were up here a lot. And his phrase was, he goes, "He would not serve it to us." Now, no, he didn't say it that kind of words. I'm not going to say how he said it, okay? But it was clearly something that maybe we should revisit, how we actually feed our inmates. Is it the same provider?
I'm not sure if that's a question. Yeah, it's the State Department of Corrections. They deliver food from, I think it's the Mohawk Correctional Facility, to facilities all around the state. They have to meet all the nutritional guidelines, all the standards that are set by the state. And it's coming from the state correction, so it meets all the standards that are required by them. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I've never had that conversation with a food services director before.
Maybe we could all have
I can get you the loaf if you want to try that.
the I'm sorry, the what? The loaf.
The loaf.
The loaf?
Not the loaf he's referring. I think, just a side note to that, legally, we tried to do something here one time, and legally we can't have jail supervisors. So that's not going to happen either way.
Okay. That being said, I'm thinking that nutritionally, I'm sure it meets all the guidelines. But something about palatable, that makes sense too.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Two is no. Anything else, Sheriff?
Yes, I do have a request. This is something that just came up within the last week or so. It is a staffing request related to the jail cooks. We have 2 part-time assistant cook vacancies. One of those vacancies has been vacant forever. We haven't been able to fill it despite our efforts in trying to recruit someone to work. The second position, the person holding that position left a couple of weeks ago to go back to school. We did have a woman come back that worked previously in the jail as a full-time cook, came back in. So the request from the food services director that I concur with is that we'd like to abolish the 2 part-time assistant cook positions and create 1 full-time cook position with the woman that came back, worked here previously.
Can you clarify, you have 2 part-time assistant cooks, right, that you would be getting rid of in the staffing pattern? And
Correct.
you'd be adding another full-time assistant cook or cook?
Yeah, we currently have 2 vacancies for part-time assistant cooks that we would be looking to take out of the pattern, and then we would be looking to put in 1 full-time cook. The part-time assistant cooks are grade 6, and the full-time cook is a grade 8.
I'll move that.
What's that? Brian?
Who's Dave?
Oh, Dave.
Dave was the personnel, I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? No. All in favor of moving it to personnel? Aye. Anything else, Sheriff?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Dan? Voucher?
Good afternoon. I'm looking to have a budget amendment to move $9,000 from a personnel line into an equipment line for the purchase of 11 radios, portable radios. It's something I discussed during my budget presentation. The original quotes we were looking at, we thought were around $1,000 a radio. Tim Hardy got an email saying that the purchase is going to be about $8,000. I'm looking to do 9 just in case there's any incidental costs above that. I discussed it again with Tim just to make sure. But this is coming out of a personnel line, which I discussed at the budget time. Wasn't filled due to the fact that we're waiting on the exam to backfill a probation officer. So we had about $47,000 in that line. It was a backfill of that and backfill of 2 promotional positions, a probation supervisor and senior probation officer. So we're definitely well within that line if it's approved by the committee and by the board.
Move it to finance, please.
Do I have a second to move it to finance? Thank you, Sue. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anything else?
No, sir.
You're done?
Yep.
Public safety, Tim? Or Glenn?
Good afternoon. Just a couple of grant award announcements that we've received that we're looking for recognition and allocation of the funding. The packets I did send out prior to the meeting, there are printed copies up there. The FY 2021 Emergency Management Performance Grant, that's an annual grant that all emergency management offices that apply in the county across the state receive. So we received our award on October 12th for $28,078. That's a 50% match grant, which we utilize our emergency management personnel staffing as a match for that. So we're required to acknowledge that funding so the treasurer can allocate that accordingly in our budget. The resolution data form is attached. So I'm just looking for a resolution to push that.
I'll move that, Don.
Do I have a second? Bill? Any discussion? All in favor to move the grant forward? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Tim?
We also received our award announcement for our 2020 Statewide Interoperable Communications Grant. This is the grant that has thankfully funded all of our radio system project upgrades to this time without having to use local funds, which has been amazing. So we received our next iteration on the 28th of September for $728,000. So we're thankful to be able to continue moving that forward. One sec, let me just make that quiet. Moving that forward so we can keep going with the projects to finish our updates. And yeah, I apologize. So that's perfect.
Dave moves that forward. Do I have a second? So, excuse me. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Keep going, Tim.
All right. Sorry, I just unplugged my phone. That'll help for a while. So just a couple of updates on our radio system communications projects that we're working on. So this week we actually began work on the simulcast upgrade for our Department of Public Works personnel. So some of the other frequencies that had already been done are Fire Alert, Fire F1, which is the fire communications main channel, our EMS communications main channel, and our law main channel. DPW was the next one to go. However, we've been waiting for chips like everyone else in many different areas. We just received our equipment. So this week we're beginning tower work. So we hope to have DPW up and running on the simulcast system in the next couple of weeks. We've been actually doing a couple of other projects with Deb and her personnel over in DPW, where we put together a portable repeater for them to be using on some of their large scale job sites. So when they're doing flagging, those kind of things, they'll have a portable repeater that the traffic control folks can use between each other so they can talk portable to portable without issues. So they tested that out last week. And actually, as part of our grant funding last year that we're finishing up, we're doing a project with the sheriff to be able to replace the mobile radios in the sheriff's patrol units and replace some portable units that they have that are not compliant with the next standard of public safety radio that's coming out. So we're fortunate enough to be able to use some of that grant funding to do these things without having to use local money that either the sheriff would have had to use or or in other cases. So we're looking to continue progressing those projects. We're going back to do some tower work. We've got another tower site that we're looking to bring on that we have radio equipment on in conjunction with Warren County, which thankfully, the site structure are already there. So it's really just the equipment. And then we'll be moving forward with this project next year. And we've got a couple other things like some of the radio console equipment that we're actually looking to upgrade as part of that project. And again, very thankful to get that grant funding to be able to do it, so we don't have to use local funds for that. Just the last item of note is the EMS support and sustainability research project that we were tasked with last month at Public Safety Committee. That survey went out this morning, and those discussions with some of the other counties are in initial discussions and information gathering. And certainly we'll let you all know, and the EMS coordinators, once we get some meetings projected with the other counties, that we can start meeting with them and gathering some information and discussion. But we are still moving forward with that.
Anything else, Tim?
No, sir.
Any questions for Tim? Thank you.
Tim, did any of your grants allow you to buy the radios for probation, rather than using county funds?
Well, right now, whatever we have would take away from one of the other projects that we're doing, since they're already slated. If we put forward another year, that there could be a chance, certainly.
I had to ask.
Thanks, Al. Anything else for Tim? Mike? Mike, go ahead.
Thanks, Don. Just give you a quick update on community service projects. We just completed a big painting project at Easton Town Hall on the renovation of all their office. We also have various raking projects in process right now, and we completed over last month the last bit of painting at Georgia Museum. Other than that, everything is operating in standard, and we're within budget. Everything's good.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Michael Carrier.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm requesting permission to backfill a vacant part-time attorney position.
Do I have a motion to move that?
Yep, move it.
Second? Sue? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Anything else, Mike?
No, thank you. That was all I had.
Easy. Any other business? Any other business? Motion to adjourn? Dave, thank you. Sue, we're adjourned.